Construction worker in wheelchair feeds little girl, without knowing she's a millionaire's daughter. Jason Miller unwrapped his lunchbox with trembling hands, not from nervousness, but from the exhaustion that had already settled into his body before 6 in the early morning. The construction site was still quiet, and he took advantage of these first peaceful minutes to organize his adapted tools on his wheelchair. That's when he heard small footsteps approaching. The little blonde girl appeared again, just as she had for the past 15 days, walking slowly through the debris of the construction site. Her expensive clothes contrasted with the accumulated dirt, and her golden hair was tousled, as if she had run hard to get there. Jason stopped fiddling with his food and looked at the child. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old, but there was something in her eyes that moved him deeply, a sadness no child so young should carry. "Good morning, Uncle," she said, stopping a few feet away. "Good morning, Princess, you're here early again." The girl nodded and stepped a little closer. Jason noticed her staring intently at the lunchbox in his hands. "Are you hungry?" he asked, already knowing the answer. She nodded but didn't ask for anything. Jason had noticed she never asked directly. It was as if she knew she had no right to ask, only to wait. Jason opened the lunchbox and divided the rice and beans in half. It was his only meal until the end of the day, but seeing that child hungry was something he couldn't bear. "Come here, sit beside me." The girl approached and sat on the ground next to the wheelchair. Jason grabbed a clean spoon he always carried and began feeding her. "What's your name again?" he asked, though he already knew. "Emily," she replied, chewing slowly. "And yours?" "Jason. But you can call me Uncle Jay if you want." Emily smiled for the first time since she'd started coming there. It was a shy smile, but genuine. Jason watched the girl eat and wondered how such a young child managed to leave home alone every morning. From the quality of her clothes, she clearly came from a wealthy family. But where were her parents? Why did no one notice she was gone? "Emily, tell me something. Does your mother know you come here?" The girl stopped chewing and lowered her eyes. "Mommy works a lot. She leaves really early and only comes back at night." "And who takes care of you when she's not there?" "Aunt Margaret. But she watches television and talks on the phone. She doesn't like it when I make noise." Jason felt a pang in his chest. He knew abandonment well, even if it was of a different kind. After the accident that left him paraplegic 3 years ago, many people had drifted away. Friends, co-workers, even some family. "And why do you come here every day, Emily?" "Because you're nice to me, Uncle Jay. You really talk to me." The girl's words echoed in Jason's heart. He finished feeding her and saved his own portion for later, though he knew he'd probably go hungry until he got home. "All right, now you need to go back home, okay? Your mother might worry." "She won't even notice I left," Emily replied, standing up. "But can I come back tomorrow?" "Of course, Princess. I'll be here." Emily waved and ran off in the direction she'd come from. Jason watched until she disappeared around the corner, then sighed and picked up his tools. The workday had only just begun, but his mind was already split between tasks and worry for that child. He knew it wasn't normal for such a little girl to walk the streets alone, especially in a neighborhood like this, where construction sites mixed with modest houses and a few distant mansions. Jason had grown up in this area. Son of Mrs. Barbara, a 68-year-old woman who had worked her entire life as a housekeeper, he knew every street, every alley, every family that lived around there. But Emily was a mystery to him. When the other construction workers began to arrive, Jason was already organizing the day's materials. He had specialized in working with the electrical and plumbing aspects of the construction, tasks he could perform perfectly, even in his wheelchair. "Hey Jay, how's your mum doing?" asked Mike, a middle-aged man who worked as a general helper. "Not too well, Mike. The medicines are expensive, and she's been complaining about pain in her joints." "That's tough, brother. If you need anything, you can count on me." Jason thanked him, but knew Mike had his own struggles too. Everyone there was fighting to support their families with the little they earned. The construction foreman, Mr. Wilson, arrived a few minutes later. He was a strict man, always worried about deadlines and productivity. Jason tried to keep his distance, knowing his physical condition was already seen as a problem by many. Everyone, We need to pick up the pace. The owner wants everything finished in 2 months, Mr. Wilson shouted for all to hear. Jason just nodded and kept working. He had learned that the best way to keep his job was to give no reason for complaints. As he worked installing the electrical wiring on the 2nd floor of the building under construction, Jason thought about his life before the accident. He had been a civil engineer, having graduated through hard work and dedication. He worked for a big company, earned well, and had plans to marry Amanda, his girlfriend at the time. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, everything changed one Tuesday morning. Jason was supervising a construction site when a poorly positioned beam gave way. He tried to warn the workers but ended up getting hit. The spinal cord injury was severe, and the doctors were clear he would never walk again. Amanda tried to stay by his side in the first few months, but the situation became unbearable. She couldn't handle the limitations his disability imposed, and eventually the relationship ended. The company where Jason worked offered him compensation and fired him, claiming they had no suitable working conditions for people with disabilities. Jason found himself alone, unemployed, and with an elderly mother to care for. That was when he discovered his willpower was stronger than he had imagined. He started looking for work, but doors kept closing on him. People saw the wheelchair first, the man second. It was through an acquaintance that he got the job at the construction site. The pay was low, much less than what he used to earn, but it was enough to buy Mrs. Barbara's medicines and keep the house running. In the first few days, Jason faced a lot of resistance from his co-workers. Some doubted his abilities, others simply ignored him. But over time, his technical knowledge and dedication earned the respect of most. What he didn't expect was to meet Emily. The girl had appeared in his life like a ray of sunshine through the clouds. Talking to her, seeing her shy smile, taking care of her in some small way. It all gave new meaning to his days. By late morning, Jason took a break for lunch. He had saved some of the bread he brought from home, thinking of Emily. Even if he didn't know whether she'd come back the next day, he wanted to be prepared. That was when Mr. Wilson approached him. "Jason, I need to talk to you." "Of course, Mr. Wilson. Some workers told me you've been feeding a kid who shows up around here. Is that true?" Jason felt his heart race. He hadn't told anyone about Emily, but apparently someone had seen her. "She's a very little girl, Mr. Wilson. She shows up hungry and—" "Listen here, Jason. I know you have a good heart, but this can't go on. The construction site is no place for kids, and if something happens to her here, it'll be our responsibility." "I understand, Mr. Wilson, but no buts. If I see that girl here again, I'll have to take action. And you know you can't afford to lose this job." The threat was clear. Jason swallowed hard and nodded. "Understood, Mr. Wilson." The foreman walked away, leaving Jason with a heavy weight in his chest. How was he going to explain to Emily that she couldn't come here anymore? How could he turn his back on a child who clearly needed help? The rest of the day passed slowly. Jason worked mechanically, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about Emily, her sick mother, and the conversation with Mr. Wilson. Everything seemed to be falling apart at once. When he finally got home, Mrs. Barbara was in the kitchen making dinner. She was a small woman, but had a strong personality. Even with her health problems, she insisted on taking care of the house and her son. "How was your day, son?" "Tiring, Mom. And how are you feeling?" "Oh, you know how it is. Some aches here, some there, but God gives me strength." Jason walked over to his mother and kissed her forehead. Mrs. Barbara had been the pillar of his life. When he became paraplegic, she was the one who encouraged him not to give up, who cared for him in those first difficult months, who helped adapt the house for his needs. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "Go ahead, son." Jason told her about Emily, how she showed up at the construction site every day, how he couldn't bear to see her hungry. He also told her about the talk with Mr. Wilson and the dilemma he was facing. Mrs. Barbara listened quietly, nodding occasionally. "Son, you have too good a heart for this world," she said when Jason finished. "But Mr. Wilson isn't wrong. You can't lose this job. We depend on it." "I know, Mom, but how do I explain to a 4-year-old that I can't help her anymore? Sometimes life forces us to make hard choices, Jason. You'll find a way to help that girl without risking your job. The next morning, Jason arrived at the site earlier than usual. He had packed an extra sandwich in his backpack. His plan was to find Emily before anyone could see them together. She showed up right at 6, as always. Jason motioned for her to come closer, but this time, he led her behind the barriers surrounding the site, where they'd be hidden from prying eyes. "Uncle Jay, why are we hiding?" Emily asked with childlike innocence. "Because there are some grumpy people who don't like it when I talk to you," Jason explained, trying to be as honest as possible. "So we'll have to meet back here, okay?" Emily nodded as if this were perfectly normal for her. "Did you bring food today too?" "I sure did, Princess." Jason took the sandwich from his backpack and shared it with Emily. While she ate, he took the chance to ask a few questions. "Emily, tell me where you live. Is it far from here?" "Not too far. It's a big house with a tall gate and a garden in front. And you walk here all by yourself?" "Yeah. I know the way. I go down 3 streets and get here." Jason was stunned. A 4-year-old walking alone for 3 blocks. Anything could happen to her on the way. "And your mom, what's she like?" Emily's face darkened slightly. "Mommy's pretty and works a lot. She has a big office and stays there all day." "Do you talk much?" "Not really. When she gets home, I'm already asleep, and in the morning when I wake up, she's already gone." Jason felt a deep sadness hearing that. He knew people who would give anything to have a child, and here was a little girl being neglected by her own parents. "And your dad?" "My daddy left when I was a baby. Mommy said he went on a trip and never came back." The conversation was interrupted by the noise of the first workers arriving. Jason quickly put away the rest of his sandwich and said goodbye to Emily. "Tomorrow we'll meet here again, okay?" Emily nodded and ran off as she always did. The following days followed the same pattern. Jason arrived early, found Emily behind the barriers, shared his food with her, and then said goodbye. He started bringing more food from home, even if it meant eating less himself. Mrs. Barbara noticed her son had lost weight and asked if he was eating properly. "I am, Mom. It's just that work has been tough." But she knew her son too well to believe that excuse. "Jason, you're sharing your food with that little girl, aren't you? There was no point lying to Mrs. Barbara. She always found out everything." "I am, Mom, but just a little. Son, I admire your heart, but you can't sacrifice yourself like that. You need to eat to keep working." "I know, Mom, but when I see that child hungry..." Mrs. Barbara sighed. She knew arguing wouldn't help. Jason had inherited her stubbornness and generosity. "All right, but at least let me help. I'll make some extra sandwiches for you to take." From that day on, Mrs. Barbara started preparing extra food for Emily. She had never seen the girl, but she already loved her like a granddaughter. Jason felt more at ease knowing he could feed Emily without going hungry himself. The secret meetings behind the barriers became the highlight of his day. Emily also seemed livelier. She told stories about what she did at home, the games she made up by herself, the cartoons she watched on television. Jason realized she was a very smart child, but also very lonely. "Uncle Jay, can I ask you something?" she said one day after finishing her meal. "Of course, Princess, go ahead." "Why do you use that wheelchair?" Jason had been expecting that question. Kids were naturally curious, and Emily was no different. "I had an accident at work, Emily. I hurt my legs, and now I can't walk anymore." "Does it hurt?" "No, it doesn't hurt. It's just different." Emily thought for a moment. "Do you feel sad because you can't walk?" The question caught Jason off guard. He was used to adults who avoided the subject or asked out of politeness, but Emily asked with pure sincerity. "Sometimes I do, Princess, but then I remember all the good things I can still do and I feel better." "What good things?" "Oh, well, I can work. I can take care of my mom. I can talk to you." Emily smiled. "I like talking to you, Uncle Jay. You don't tell me to be quiet like Aunt Margaret." Once again, Jason felt that mix of affection and worry. How could such a young child be so starved for attention? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot for those of us just starting out. Now continuing. The weeks passed, and the routine remained the same. Jason worked during the day, took care of his mother at night, and every morning met Emily for their improvised breakfast. He had become a father figure to the girl, and she had become the daughter he never had. But the situation was becoming unsustainable. Mr. Wilson began to suspect something was going on. He had noticed that Jason arrived earlier than the others and sometimes seemed distracted during work. "Jason, you've been acting strange," Mike said one day. "Is something going on?" "No, everything's normal." "I don't know, brother. You've been coming in really early and always rushing off when the workday ends." Jason couldn't tell Mike the truth. No matter how much he trusted him, he couldn't risk the information reaching Mr. Wilson's ears. What Jason didn't know was that Emily was also facing problems at home. The nanny, Margaret, had started to suspect the girl's morning absences. She was being pressured by her employer to keep Emily under constant supervision. Margaret was a 50-year-old divorced woman who had worked for the family for 2 years. She had taken the job because it paid well, but she had no patience for taking care of children. In fact, she saw Emily as an obstacle to her plans of finding a wealthy man in the neighborhood. "Emily, where were you this morning?" Margaret asked when the girl returned from her meeting with Jason. "I was playing in the garden," Emily lied. "Don't lie to me, girl. I looked for you in the garden and couldn't find you." Emily lowered her head. She wasn't very good at lying. I went to the gate." "The gate? You went out on the street alone?" Emily didn't answer, but her expression confirmed Margaret's suspicions. "Your mother will hear about this, and you'll stay in your bedroom until she gets home." Emily started crying, but Margaret wasn't moved. She took the girl to her bedroom and locked the door. "Crying won't help. You disobeyed, and now you'll pay for it." That afternoon, when Jennifer Thompson came home from work, Margaret was waiting for her with a serious expression. Jennifer was a beautiful and successful 32-year-old woman. She had built a business empire after her divorce and now ran one of the largest construction companies in the city. Her professional success was inversely proportional to the time she dedicated to her daughter. "What happened, Margaret?" Jennifer asked, taking off her blazer and tossing it on the sofa. "The girl has been leaving the house alone, Miss Jennifer. This morning, I went looking for her and couldn't find her. When she came back, she was all dirty and hungry." Jennifer felt a pang of guilt, but quickly turned it into irritation. "What do you mean, leaving alone? Weren't you watching her?" "I was, Miss Jennifer, but the girl is clever. She must have slipped out when I was hanging laundry in the backyard." "Where did she go?" "I don't know. She wouldn't tell me." Jennifer went up to Emily's bedroom and found her daughter sitting on the bed, her eyes still red from crying. "Emily, Margaret told me you left the house alone. Is that true?" Emily looked at her mother fearfully. She wasn't used to talking to Jennifer, and when she did, it was usually because she had done something wrong. "I didn't go far, Mommy." "It doesn't matter if it was far or near. You're too little to go out alone. Anything could happen to you." "But I just went." "I don't want to know where you went. I want you to promise you won't leave the house without permission again." Emily stayed silent. How could she promise something like that? Uncle Jay was the only person who really talked to her, who cared about her. How could she give that up? "Emily, I'm talking to you. Do you promise or not?" "I promise, Mommy," Emily lied, knowing she wouldn't be able to keep her word. Jennifer kissed her daughter's forehead and left the room. She had an important meeting the next day and needed to prepare. The next morning, Emily woke up determined to find Uncle Jay, even though she knew she was disobeying her mother. She waited for Margaret to get distracted watching television and slipped out the back door, but this time she didn't time it right. Margaret noticed her absence earlier and went out looking for her. When Emily was returning home, she found the nanny standing at the door. "I knew it, you disobeyed again." Margaret grabbed Emily by the arm and dragged her inside. "Now you'll stay locked in your bedroom until your mother decides what to do with you." Emily cried and begged, but Margaret didn't budge. She locked the girl in the bedroom and called Jennifer. "Miss Jennifer, I need to speak with you urgently." "What is it now, Margaret?" "The girl left the house again. I locked her in her room, but I can't watch her 24 hours a day." Jennifer sighed. She was in the middle of an important meeting and couldn't deal with household problems at that moment. "Here's what you do, Margaret. I'll talk to her tomorrow. For now, keep her in her room." "Yes, ma'am." Meanwhile, Jason waited for Emily behind the barriers. When she didn't show up, he grew worried. It was the first time in over a month that she hadn't come. Throughout the workday, Jason couldn't focus. He kept wondering what might have happened to Emily. Was she sick? Had someone discovered their meetings? When he got home, Mrs. Barbara immediately noticed something was wrong. "What happened, son? You look worried." "The girl didn't show up today, Mom. It's the first time this has happened. Maybe she just couldn't leave the house. Or maybe something happened to her." Mrs. Barbara walked over to her son and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Jason, you need to accept that this situation can't go on forever. Sooner or later, her family would find out." "I know, Mom, but she's just a child abandoned by her own parents. And you can't save every abandoned child in the world, son. You already do more than you can." Jason knew his mother was right, but it didn't ease his concern for Emily. The next morning, he arrived at the construction site even earlier, hoping she'd appear. But Emily was still missing. That's when Jason made a decision that would change everything. He decided to look for the house where Emily lived. She had said it was a big house, with a tall gate and a garden in front, 3 blocks away. During lunch break, Jason left the construction site and began walking through the neighborhood streets. It wasn't hard to find the house. It was an imposing mansion with high walls and a well-kept garden in front. Jason stood across the street, watching the house. He wondered how a child who lived in a place like that could be so emotionally abandoned. That's when he saw a woman leaving the house. She was young, well-dressed, and walked hurriedly toward a luxury car parked in the garage. Jason guessed that must be Emily's mother. He kept watching for a few minutes until he saw Emily appear at the second-floor window. She was looking out at the street with a sad expression. When her eyes met Jason's, her face lit up. Emily waved to him from the window, and Jason waved back. He wanted to shout to her, say he was worried, but he knew that would only cause trouble. Jason returned to the construction site with a heavy heart. Seeing Emily trapped in that house, looking out the window like a bird in a cage, was one of the saddest things he'd ever seen. That night, Emily managed to escape her room. Margaret had been careless and left the key in the lock. The girl waited for the nanny to fall asleep and slipped out of the house quietly. She ran through the dark streets until she reached the construction site. Of course, Jason wasn't there, but Emily sat in their usual meeting spot and cried. "Uncle Jay, where are you?" she murmured, hugging her knees. She stayed there for nearly an hour, until the early morning chill made her return home. Fortunately, Margaret was still asleep and didn't notice she had left. The next morning, Emily tried to go out again, but Margaret was vigilant. The nanny had decided not to leave the girl alone for even a minute. "You're going to stay here with me the whole time," Margaret said. "No more mischief." Emily resigned herself and stayed home, but her heart was at the construction site with Uncle Jay. Jason kept going to work, but his days had lost their spark. He performed his tasks mechanically, always hoping Emily would suddenly appear with her shy smile. The other workers began to notice Jason was different. He had gone back to being the quiet, reserved man from his first days on the job. "Hey Jay, you all right?" Mike asked. "You look like you lost $1 and found a cent." "I'm fine, Mike. Just tired." But Jason wasn't fine. He had grown used to Emily's presence, her innocent questions, her pure affection. Without her, he felt empty. Mrs. Barbara noticed her son was depressed and tried to cheer him up. "Son, maybe it's for the best. You were getting too attached to that girl." "She needed me, Mom. And you needed her too. But you're from different worlds. Sooner or later, that would have become obvious." Jason knew his mother was right, but that didn't make the separation any less painful. 3 days passed without Emily. Jason had lost hope of seeing her again when she appeared on Thursday morning. She looked different, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, and her clothes were dirtier than usual. "Uncle Jay!" she shouted, running toward him. Jason felt immense joy at the sight of her. He scooped her up and hugged her tightly. "Emily, I was so worried. Where were you?" "Aunt Margaret locked me in my room, but today I got out when she went to the market." Jason noticed Emily was trembling. She seemed to have lost weight in the few days they'd been apart. "Are you hungry, Princess?" Emily nodded eagerly. Jason pulled the sandwich from his backpack, though he hadn't held much hope she'd show up. "Here, eat slowly. As Emily ate, Jason noticed a scratch on her arm. "What happened here, Emily?" "I tried to climb out the window last night, but I slipped and scraped myself." Jason felt a mix of worry and admiration. A 4-year-old trying to climb out a window just to see him. "Emily, you can't do that. It's too dangerous." "But I wanted to see you, Uncle Jay. I missed you." Emily's words touched Jason's heart deeply. He had missed her too, more than he wanted to admit. "I missed you too, Princess. But you have to promise me you won't hurt yourself trying to leave the house again." "I promise. But can I still come here?" Jason hesitated. He knew the situation was becoming unsustainable, but he couldn't say no to Emily. "Yes, you can. But only when it's safe, okay?" Emily nodded and finished her sandwich. "Uncle Jay, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, Princess. I think Mommy doesn't like me very much." Emily's confession broke Jason's heart. He crouched down to her eye level. "Why do you think that, Emily?" "Because she never talks to me. She only talks to me when I do something wrong." "Maybe your mom is just really busy with work. But is her work more important than me?" Jason didn't know how to answer. "How do you explain the complexities of adulthood to a 4-year-old? "Listen, Emily, sometimes grown-ups do things that aren't right because they're confused too. But that doesn't mean your mom doesn't love you." "Do you think she loves me?" "I'm sure she does, Princess. All mothers love their children, even when they don't know how to show it." Emily seemed to accept the explanation, but Jason noticed she wasn't entirely convinced. The meeting was interrupted by the sound of approaching voices. Jason quickly hid Emily behind the barriers and returned to his workstation. Mr. Wilson was arriving with a man Jason had never seen before. They were talking about the construction deadlines and seemed worried. "The project needs to be ready in 6 weeks," said the unfamiliar man. "We can't afford any more delays." "Understood, sir. We'll speed things up." Jason kept working, trying to look busy, but his mind was on Emily, hidden behind the barriers. When the men walked away, Jason went to check on her. "Everything okay back here, Princess?" "Yes, Uncle Jay, but I think I need to go. Aunt Margaret might notice I'm gone." "All right, but be careful on your way, okay?" Emily nodded and said goodbye with a kiss on Jason's cheek. She ran off, leaving Jason with a bittersweet feeling. On one hand, he was happy to see Emily again. On the other, he was worried about the risks she was taking to meet him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The following days were an emotional roller coaster for Jason. Emily showed up sporadically, always risking getting caught under Margaret's watch. Each meeting was precious, but it also deepened Jason's concern. He began to notice Emily looking thinner and paler. When he asked if she was eating properly at home, she always dodged the question. "Emily, are you eating well?" "Yes, Uncle Jay." But Jason didn't believe her. He had learned to read her expressions and knew when she wasn't telling the truth. "Princess, you can tell, Uncle Jay. Are you getting meals at home?" Emily lowered her eyes. "Aunt Margaret sometimes forgets to feed me. She says I'm being punished." Jason felt a surge of anger. How could an adult use food as punishment for a child? "And your mother, doesn't she notice?" "Mommy comes home very late. I'm already asleep." Jason made a decision right then. He couldn't stand by and watch Emily being neglected like this. "Emily, tell me something. What's your mother's full name?" "Jennifer Thompson." Jason memorized the name. He knew some people who could help him learn more about Emily's family. That night, Jason talked to Mrs. Barber about the situation. "Mom, I have to do something. That child is being mistreated." "Jason, you need to be careful. If that family has money, they could cause trouble for you." "I don't care, Mom. I can't just stand by and watch a child suffer." Mrs. Barbara knew her son well enough to realize it was pointless to try and dissuade him. "Then at least be cautious. Don't do anything impulsive," Jason promised, but in his heart he knew he couldn't wait much longer to act. The next day, Jason asked to leave work early, claiming he needed to take his mother to the doctor. Mr. Wilson wasn't happy but agreed. Jason went to Emily's house and watched from across the street. He wanted to understand the family's routine better. maybe find a chance to talk to the girl's mother. He stayed there for nearly 2 hours until he saw Jennifer coming home from work. She was a beautiful, well-dressed woman, but she walked hurriedly as if always running late for something. Jason watched her enter the house and decided to approach. He crossed the street and rang the doorbell. Margaret answered the door and was surprised to see a man in a wheelchair. "Good afternoon, how can I help you?" "Good afternoon, I'd like to speak with Mrs. Jennifer Thompson." "And you are?" "Jason Miller. It's about her daughter, Emily." Margaret immediately grew suspicious. "What about Emily?" "I'd prefer to speak directly with her mother if possible." Margaret hesitated, but eventually called Jennifer. When Jennifer appeared at the door, Jason felt a mix of nervousness and determination. "Mrs. Jennifer, my name is Jason Miller. I need to speak with you about your daughter." Jennifer looked at Jason with distrust. "What's wrong with my daughter? Who are you?" "I work at the construction site nearby, and your daughter has been showing up there." Jennifer's expression changed instantly. "What do you mean, showing up there? Emily doesn't leave the house alone." Jason realized Jennifer truly didn't know about her daughter's escapades. "Ma'am, your daughter has been coming to the construction site every day for over a month. She shows up hungry and I've been sharing my food with her." Jennifer turned pale. She looked at Margaret, who was clearly embarrassed. "Is this true, Margaret?" "Mrs. Jennifer, The girl is very clever. She manages to slip out without me noticing. And you didn't tell me." "I did, ma'am, and you told me to lock her in her bedroom." Jennifer felt a mix of anger and shame. She was being confronted with her own neglect in front of a stranger. "Mr. Jason, would you come inside so we can talk properly?" Jason accepted the invitation and entered the house. It was even more luxurious inside than it appeared from the outside. Jennifer led him to the living room and offered him something to drink, which he declined. "Tell me exactly what's been happening," Jennifer requested. Jason recounted the whole story, from the first day Emily appeared at the construction site to their most recent encounters. He was honest about everything, including his concern for the girl's physical and emotional state. Jennifer listened quietly, feeling smaller with each word Jason spoke. "Mr. Jason, I didn't know Emily was going through this. Mrs. Jennifer, with all due respect, your daughter is a very special child. She's smart, affectionate, but she's clearly starved for attention." "I work a lot," Jennifer said, as if that justified everything. "I understand, Mom. But a 4-year-old shouldn't be walking the streets alone just to find someone to talk to." Jennifer felt attacked, but knew Jason was right. "What do you suggest I do?" "Talk to your daughter, find out how she's feeling, and maybe reconsider your priorities." Jennifer was silent for a few moments. "Mr. Jason, I appreciate you looking after Emily, but now that I know about the situation, I'll take the necessary steps." Jason sensed he was being dismissed, but there was one more thing he needed to say. "Mrs. Jennifer, may I ask for one thing?" "Go ahead." "Don't punish Emily for coming to see me. She was just looking for love and attention." Jennifer nodded, but Jason wasn't sure if she truly understood. He said goodbye and left the house, hoping he'd done the right thing. That night, Jennifer finally had a serious talk with Emily. She went up to her daughter's bedroom and sat on the bed beside her. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something important." Emily looked at her mother warily. Important talks usually meant trouble. "Have you been leaving the house to meet a man who works at the construction site nearby?" Emily didn't answer, but her expression confirmed Jennifer's suspicions. "Emily, why didn't you tell me you were doing this?" "Because you're never here for me to tell you, Mommy." Emily's simple, honest answer hit Jennifer hard. "I'm here now, Emily. Tell Mommy why you went looking for that man." "Because Uncle Jay talks to me. He gives me food and tells me stories." "And why did you need to look for those things outside the house?" Emily stayed silent for a moment, trying to come up with an answer her mother could understand. "Because I'm alone all the time, Mommy. Aunt Margaret doesn't like me, and you only talk to me when I do something wrong." Jennifer felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. Her 4-year-old daughter had summed up everything wrong in their lives in just a few words. "Emily, Mommy knows she hasn't been a good mother to you." "You don't like me, Mommy." The question broke Jennifer's heart. She pulled Emily into a hug and started crying. "Of course I like you, sweetheart. I love you more than anything in the world. I just didn't know how to show it." "Then, why do you never play with me?" "Because Mommy was too worried about work. But that's going to change, okay?" Emily looked at her mother hopefully. "You'll play with me?" "Yes, sweetheart. And I'll talk to you every day." "And can I still see Uncle Jay?" Jennifer hesitated. She didn't know how she felt about Jason. On one hand, she was grateful he'd taken care of Emily. On the other, she was ashamed that a stranger had noticed her daughter's needs before she had. "Emily, Uncle Jay seems like a very good person, but you don't have to sneak out to see him anymore. If you want to meet him, Mommy can take you." Emily lit up at the possibility. "Really, Mommy? Really? But first, you have to promise you won't leave the house alone anymore. It's very dangerous." "I promise, Mommy." Jennifer kissed her daughter's forehead and stayed with her until she fell asleep. Then she went downstairs and had a serious talk with Margaret. "Margaret, we need to talk." "Yes, Miss Jennifer." "Why didn't you tell me Emily was leaving the house every day?" "I did tell you, ma'am, several times." Jennifer tried to remember and realized Margaret was right. She had complained about Emily, but Jennifer had always been too busy to pay attention. "And why were you punishing Emily by not giving her food?" Margaret got defensive. "I never left the girl without food, Miss Jennifer." "That's not what Emily told me." "The girl lies, Miss Jennifer. You know how kids are." Jennifer realized the situation was more complicated than she'd thought. She didn't know who to believe, but decided to give her daughter the benefit of the doubt. "Margaret, I'll need to rethink our work arrangement. Maybe it's better if I hire someone more qualified to take care of Emily." "Miss Jennifer, please, I need this job." "I know, Margaret, but my daughter needs special care and I'm not sure you're prepared for that." The next morning, Jennifer did something she hadn't done in a long time. She called the office and cancelled all her meetings for the day. "But Mom, the meeting with the investors is very important," her secretary said. "Reschedule for tomorrow, Sarah. Today, I have a more important commitment." Jennifer woke Emily earlier than usual and said they were going out together. "Where are we going, Mommy?" "We're going to visit Uncle Jay." Emily beamed. She couldn't believe her mother was actually taking her to see Jason. They walked together to the construction site. Jennifer was surprised to see how well Emily knew the way. She really had made that trip alone many times. When they arrived at the site, Jennifer asked to speak to Jason. The other workers looked curiously at the well-dressed woman with a child. Jason was working on the second floor when someone shouted that he had visitors. He came down and was surprised to see Jennifer and Emily together. "Uncle Jay!" Emily shouted, running to hug him. Jason picked her up, but his eyes were fixed on Jennifer. "Ms. Thompson, I didn't expect to see you here. Mr. Miller, I came to thank you for everything you've done for Emily, and also to apologize." "There's nothing to apologize for, ma'am." "Yes, there is. I failed as a mother and you had to take on a role that was mine." Jason was embarrassed by Jennifer's honesty. "Ma'am, we all make mistakes. What matters is recognizing them and trying to make things right." "That's exactly what I'm trying to do, and I'd like to propose something to you." "What would that be?" "I'd like to hire you to work at my company." Jason was surprised. "Your company?" "I own a construction company. Perhaps you didn't know, but this construction site where you work is mine." Jason was shocked. He had no idea he was working for Emily's mother. I didn't know, ma'am." "And that makes everything even more impressive. You took care of my daughter without expecting anything in return, even while working for me indirectly." "I took care of her because she needed it, not out of self-interest." "I know that, Mr. Miller, and that's why I'd like to offer you a better position." Jason hesitated. He didn't want Jennifer to think he'd gotten close to Emily for personal gain. "Miss Thompson, I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because I don't want you to think I approached Emily for financial reasons." Jennifer was moved by Jason's response. "Mr. Miller, it's precisely because of that kind of character that I want you working with me. The company needs honest people like you." At that moment, Mr. Wilson approached the group. "Mrs. Thompson, I didn't know you were coming today." "Good afternoon, Wilson. I came to speak with Mr. Miller." Mr. Wilson gave Jason a suspicious look. "Did something happen?" "On the contrary, Mr. Miller is being promoted." Jason and Mr. Wilson were equally surprised. Promoted? Mr. Wilson asked. Yes, Mr. Miller will take over the technical coordination of some special projects. Jason didn't know what to say. Everything was happening so fast. Ms. Thompson, I need to think about this. Of course, Mr. Miller. But while you think, how about having lunch together? Emily and I would love to get to know the person who took such good care of her better. Jason looked at Emily, who was beaming at the idea. What do you think, Princess? Want to have lunch with Uncle Jay? Yes, Emily replied excitedly. Jason accepted the invitation, still trying to process everything that was happening. They went to a nearby restaurant, and during lunch, Jennifer and Jason talked more deeply. Jason shared about his engineering background, the accident, and the difficulties he'd faced. Jennifer, in turn, talked about her company, the challenges of being a woman in business, and how she'd lost her way and neglected Emily. Mr. Miller, can I make a confession? Of course, Mom. I built a business empire, but I lost my daughter in the process. You, who have far fewer resources than I do, managed to give Emily something I never did, genuine attention. Miss Thompson, it's never too late to start over. That's what I intend to do, and I'd like to have your help. How so? Well, besides the job offer, I'd like you to continue being Emily's friend. She clearly cares deeply for you. Jason looked at Emily, who was playing with the toys that came with her Happy Meal. It would be an honor to keep being her friend. And maybe you could teach me a few things about being a good mother. Jason was touched by Jennifer's request. Ma'am, I don't have children. I don't know if I'm the right person to give advice. But you took better care of Emily than I did, and I'm her mother. Jason thought for a moment before answering. Ms. Jennifer, taking care of a child is simple. You just need to be present, listen to what she has to say, and show her she matters to you. It sounds so easy when you say it like that. It's simple, but not easy. It takes time, patience, and most of all, love. After lunch, Jennifer took Jason and Emily to see the company's office. Jason was impressed by the size and structure of the construction company. All of this is yours? He asked. Mine and the investors, but yes, I built this company from scratch. It's impressive. Jennifer showed Jason some of the ongoing projects and explained where he could fit in. You'd have your own office, a team under your supervision, and a much better salary than what you earn now. Jason was tempted by the offer, but still had reservations. Ms. Jennifer, I need to talk to my mother before making a decision. Of course, and if you'd like, you can bring her here to see the company. She'd be honored. That night, Jason told Mrs. Barbara everything. She listened carefully, asking pointed questions. And do you want to accept the offer, son? I don't know, Mom. On one hand, it's an incredible opportunity. On the other, I'm afraid people will think I took advantage of the situation. Jason, you took care of that girl for over a month without expecting anything in return. If an opportunity came up now, it's because you deserve it. But what if it goes wrong? What if I can't meet expectations? Mrs. Barbara stood up and placed her hands on her son's shoulders. My son, you've already proven you can overcome any obstacle. Take this opportunity. You deserve it. Jason fell asleep thinking about his mother's words. The next morning he made his decision. He called Jennifer and accepted the offer. Mr. Jason, you won't regret this. When can you start? Whenever you need me. How about next Monday? Perfect. Jason spent the rest of the week organizing his departure from the construction site. Some co-workers were happy for him, others showed envy. You got lucky, Jay, said Mike. You took care of the boss's daughter, and now you're set for life. Jason didn't like the comment but chose not to respond. He knew his intentions were pure, and that was all that mattered. On his last day at the site, Jason said goodbye to everyone. Mr. Wilson, who had been hostile at first, ended up acknowledging Jason's worth. Jay, I admit I doubted you at first, but you proved you're a capable professional. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I learned a lot working here, and we learned a lot from you too. On Monday, Jason started his new job. Jennifer introduced him to the whole team and explained his role. Everyone, this is Jason Miller, our new technical coordinator. He'll be responsible for the company's accessibility projects. Jason was surprised to hear he'd be working specifically on accessibility projects. Accessibility projects, he asked. Yes, I realized our company lacks proper projects for people with disabilities, and who better to coordinate that than someone who lives that reality? Jason was moved by Jennifer's thoughtfulness. In his first days, he focused on understanding how the company worked and evaluating existing projects. He identified several areas for improvement in accessibility. Meanwhile, Jennifer kept her promise to be a more present mother. She had rearranged her schedule to spend more time with Emily. "Mommy, are you working late today?" Emily asked every morning. "No, sweetheart. Today, I'll be home early so we can play together." Emily was radiant with her mother's change in behavior. She had started smiling constantly again and was visibly happier. Jennifer had also dismissed Margaret and hired a more qualified nanny, Mrs. Johnson, an experienced woman who genuinely loved children. "Mrs. Johnson, Emily can be a little shy at first, but she's a wonderful girl," Jennifer explained. "Don't worry, Ms. Thompson, I have experience with children of all ages." Emily liked Mrs. Johnson immediately. She was affectionate, patient, and truly interested in the girls' activities. A month after Jason had started at the company, Jennifer organized a special lunch to celebrate the first results of the accessibility projects. "Jason, the first projects you developed have exceeded all our expectations," Jennifer said in front of the whole team. "Thank you, Jennifer, but the credit goes to the whole team." "Don't be modest. You brought a perspective we didn't have before." Jason felt professionally fulfilled for the first time since the accident. He was using his knowledge to make a difference in the lives of other people with disabilities. During lunch, Emily appeared in the office, accompanied by Mrs. Johnson. "Uncle Jay!" she shouted, running to hug him. Jason picked her up and introduced her to his new colleagues. "Everyone, this is Emily, the most special girl in the world." Emily was embarrassed by the praise, but smiled at everyone. "Uncle Jay, do you like working here?" "I love it, Princess. And you? Are you enjoying spending more time with your mum?" "I am. Mommy plays with me every day now." Jason looked at Jennifer and smiled. It was clear both of them were much happier. "Emily, why don't you show Uncle Jay the drawing you made today?" Jennifer suggested. Emily took a sheet of paper from her backpack and showed it to Jason. It was a simple drawing made with crayons, but very meaningful. In the drawing there were 3 figures, a blonde woman, a little girl, and a man in a wheelchair. All of them were smiling and holding hands. "This drawing is beautiful, Emily. Who are these people?" "It's Mommy, me, and you, Uncle Jay. We're a family now." Emily's words moved both Jason and Jennifer. The girl had captured in a simple drawing the transformation that had happened in all their lives. Jason realized he had found much more than a new job. He had found a family. Jennifer was also emotional. She had regained her daughter and gained a true friend. "Emily is right," Jennifer said. "We really have become a family." The following months were full of growth for everyone. Jason developed innovative accessibility projects that put the company at the forefront of the industry. Jennifer managed to balance work and motherhood better, and Emily flourished with all the attention and love she was receiving. Jason was also able to provide better care for Mrs. Barbara. With his new salary, he could buy all the medicines she needed and even hired health insurance. "Son, I'm so proud of you," Mrs. Barbara said one day. "You turned a difficult situation into a blessing." "I just did what I thought was right, Mom." And that's exactly what made all the difference. Jason had learned that sometimes life's biggest transformations come from the smallest actions. Sharing his food with Emily had seemed like a simple gesture at the time, but it had changed all their lives. A year after Jason and Emily first met, Jennifer organized a special party. She invited all the company's employees, Mrs. Barbara, Mrs. Johnson, and some children from the neighborhood. "Jason, this party is to celebrate 1 year of our special family," Jennifer said. "Our special family?" "Yes. You, me, Emily, your mother, Mrs. Johnson, all of us who came together because of your generous heart." During the party, Jason gave a moving speech. "A year ago, I was just trying to help a hungry child. I never imagined that simple act would change so many lives. Emily taught me that sometimes we find family in the most unexpected places." Everyone applauded, and Emily climbed onto Jason's lap. "Uncle Jay, you saved my life." "No, Princess, you saved mine." The party continued through the afternoon, with games, music, and lots of joy. It was a celebration of love, family, and second chances. Jennifer watched everything with a smile on her face. She had learned that financial success meant nothing without special people to share it with. Jason was radiant. He had discovered that his disability didn't limit him at all. On the contrary, it had given him a unique perspective that made him more valuable as a professional and as a person. Emily ran around the party, playing with the other children but always returning to Jason and Jennifer. She had learned what it meant to be loved unconditionally. Mrs. Barbara watched it all with tears in her eyes. She had raised a son with a heart as big as the world, and now she was seeing the fruits of that upbringing. When the party ended and everyone had left, Jason, Jennifer, and Emily were alone in the garden of the house. "Uncle Jay, will you keep being my friend forever?" Emily asked. "Forever and one more day, princess." "And you, Mommy? You won't work so much anymore?" "No, sweetheart. I've learned there are things more important than work." Emily smiled and took Jason and Jennifer's hands. "Now we're a real family." And they were. A family not formed by blood, but by something much stronger: love, care, and the willingness to put others' needs before their own. Jason had begun that journey as a lonely man, struggling to overcome the challenges of his disability. Now, he was a respected professional, a loving son, and the uncle at heart of a special girl. Jennifer had started as a work-obsessed woman who had lost connection with her own daughter. Now she was a present mother and a businesswoman who used her success to do good. Emily had begun as a neglected child, searching for attention and affection in dangerous places. Now she was a happy girl, surrounded by love and care. Their transformations proved it's never too late to change, that love can heal the deepest wounds, and that sometimes miracles come disguised as simple gestures. In the years that followed, Jennifer's company became a leader in accessibility projects. Jason developed innovative technologies adopted by construction companies across the country. Emily grew up surrounded by love and attention. She became a confident, empathetic child with a strong social conscience. Jason and Jennifer never married, but developed a deep and lasting friendship. They were partners in raising Emily and collaborators in various social projects. Mrs. Barbara lived to see the grandson of her heart she had always wanted. Emily visited her every weekend and learned from her the values of simplicity and generosity. Mrs. Johnson became much more than a nanny. She was a second grandmother to Emily and a dear friend to the family. Jason and Emily's story spread throughout the city. They were invited to give talks and interviews and became examples of how small gestures can create big changes. But for them, the most important thing wasn't public recognition. It was the simple fact that they had found each other at the right moment when they all needed love and care. Jason always said that the accident that left him paraplegic had been both the worst and the best thing that ever happened to him. Worst because it brought him many hardships. Best because it led him to Emily and Jennifer. Emily always remembered the day she met Uncle Jay as the day her life truly began. Before him, she felt invisible. After him, she knew what it was like to be loved. Jennifer always referred to the day Jason rang her doorbell as the day she woke up to life. Before that, she was merely existing. After that, she was truly living. The lunchbox Jason shared with Emily every morning had become so much more than food. It had become a symbol of generosity, love, and the human capacity to make a difference in others' lives. And it all started with a man who, even with little, chose to share what he had with a child who needed far more than food. He had given love, attention, and care. In return, he had received a family, a renewed career, and the certainty that he had made a difference in the world. Emily had given Jason the chance to be the father he never imagined he could be. Jason had given Emily the unconditional love she so desperately needed. Jennifer had given Jason a second professional chance. Jason had given Jennifer the most important lesson of her life, that nothing matters more than the people we love. Together, they had created something beautiful and lasting. A chosen family built on love, mutual care, and the certainty that together they were stronger than apart. The end. What did you think of this story of love, perseverance, and family? Do you believe small gestures can change entire lives? Tell us in the comments which part moved you the most. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other inspiring stories like this one. Your opinion means a lot to us.